In Islam, you have the symbol of the crescent moon and the star. The crescent represents renewal and progress, as this represents the earliest phase of the moon after the new moon is complete, right? This phase represents fertility, as the new moon is the time to plant seeds, while the full moon is the time to reap the harvest of pre-existing seeds. For example, during the full moon, trees soak in all the nutrients from the soil and Earth's minerals will draw throughout the bark of the tree. Meanwhile, this also happens energetically for us as humans, meaning that all of the local luminaries have an effect on us. It's not just the moon. During the full moon phase, our emotions usually will run higher than they would on any other set of days throughout any 4-week period. Now, according to Islam, the star symbolizes the illumination of knowledge and the advocate of peace, right? Allah is a moon god historically, but Allah also has a feminine counterpart named Alat. Most people don't know that. So we're about to talk about it. Alat is the star on the symbol of Islam. That star is Venus. It's the morning star and the evening star. And I studied Bobby Hemmett a lot as well. And listening to him, I was under the impression that that star on the flag represented Sirius. And I actually do see why he thought that. And he has a good reason. But from what I've learned, that's not the case. It's Venus. In all cultures, Venus represents divine femininity, love, desire, passion, sexuality, harmony, and prosperity. And she also represents the Queen of Heaven, who is the Virgin Mary, aka Virgo in astrology, which rules the Taurus bull. Keyword, bull. I'm going to go into the bull symbolism here shortly. But Virgo also governs Libra, which is justice of astrology. Pretty much Ma'at is the balance scale. So as I'm doing tons of research, all the Venusian goddesses pretty much have the same description as the Queen of Heaven. And the reason why Venus is a 5-point star is because it represents the pentagram shape that it leaves behind as it orbits Earth. It creates this beautiful pattern, man, and I'm going to show you guys right here. Look at this. This is sacred geometry on display. And apparently, this geometric pattern, mind you, we live in an electromagnetic universe. Keyword, magnetic. So this pattern has a push and pull effect on the Earth that actually impacts the way that we experience duality. I'll get into that in a little bit here shortly. But Venus also represents the Eye of Ra. If you look into ancient Egypt, all of the mother goddesses, the most respected mother goddesses, all possessed the Eye of Ra as their symbol. Venus makes a complete trip around the Earth every 4 years, but to us it appears as 8 years because of its unique path of coming and going. And that path is the reason why it is the evening star and the morning star. And as I was mentioning earlier, the effects of this pattern may also be similar to how the moon phases affect us as a collective. In ancient times, the rising and the setting of this star did have a pattern, like a pattern type of effect on the people. And I've read that Venus represents the unification of opposites, like attraction. And always remember, there's duality here. You're not always going to attract the things that you want. However, Venus does play a huge part in how we attract, pretty much. And also how we experience attraction as well. So this push and pull pattern that Venus has with the Earth it actually produces like a certain algorithm in our reality that we might not be aware of, but it does impact the reality. The same way, like Mercury retrogrades. Yeah, retrogrades, solar flares, things of that nature. And here are a couple of illustrations just to show you the effects of the moon and how Venus may affect us as well. So it is the pattern of this star that is the reason why one time it's the evening star, another time it's the morning star. But that push and pull effect is equal to the moon. It may not be the same as the moon's, but I'm putting this list right here so you can actually see, hey, if the closest planet, which is the moon, the closest luminary object to us can affect us this much, how much you think the rest of the planets are affecting us? That's why it's so important to dig into astrology, learn your natal chart, all of your placements, because it's telling you exactly the energy that you have to overcome, the energy you have to master, the energy that you have to deal with. So when you understand the energies that you're dealing with on the inside, it's not going to be hard to learn how to deal with what's going on the outside, because what's on the outside is inside. We have chakras that connect to each planet, literally. So yeah, back to what I was saying about Allah, right? We talked about Allah and the feminine counterpart, Allat. So we're going to go into Allah just a little bit first. Who is Allah? Allah is the god of the moon, whose symbol is the crescent moon and the bull, hence why I brought up the bull earlier. Allah is the god of wisdom and cattle, and he's also an Anunnaki, same as a Sumerian from Nibiru, which was Planet X. You could look it up. Yeah, Allah is actually where the word sin comes from. It's not a word for moral abomination like we've been taught to think. That was actually Allah's name. His name was Nanarsin, or Nanasin, or Naramsin, however you want to pronounce it, or depending on what language you were using at that time and stuff like that. So Allah, who is Nanarsin, is the son of Enlil, who is Yahweh, and in other words, Jehovah, right? Enlil was the one that said there is no gods before him. He was a jealous god. That was Enlil, who was also Anunnaki Sumerian from Nibiru. His brother Enki, Enlil's brother Enki, played a part in creating modern day humans as we know today. I just thought I'd share that because it did something for me when I found it out too. So the Anunnaki god Nanarsin, his symbol was a bull, essentially representing the horizontal crescent of the waxing moon, appearing similar to the horns of that animal. Yeah, you can see it here. Yeah, pretty much the horns of the bull and the moon, they're synonymous with each other. So yeah, Allah, he was appointed by his father Enlil to take over rulership of the Sumerian dynasty on Earth. The reason why they first came here in the first place was so they could mine gold to strengthen their atmosphere, because their atmosphere was weakening. I don't really have the full story on why it was weakening, when it was weakening, or anything like that, but it was not Allah that was sent here first. It was actually Allah's brother-in-law. I think it was his brother-in-law or his father-in-law. I think it was his father-in-law, actually, who went by the name of Alalu. You can see his face on Mars right now. If you typed in on Google the face on Mars, it's Alalu. This is who Anu had exiled and pretty much abolished from this planet. And yeah, man, it's a real story, happened around 400,000 years ago. But Alalu was the first Anunnaki to set foot on this planet. He was sent by Anu to come mine the gold. But back on topic, let's talk about Alat, right? Allah's counterpart. Now, Alat is known as the triple goddess and the divine feminine aspect of Allah. Her symbol is the lion and the crescent moon. She manifested as a pre-Islamic spirit who was once among the primary deities venerated at Mecca. Alat is goddess of fertility in the moon. Al-Yuza is goddess of the morning star, which is Venus, and also a guardian of the fish in the sea. And I just thought that was very interesting, because normally the goddesses from Sirius are associated with being a guardian of the sea, fish, and the dolphins. But I guess she is too. And Manat is the goddess of fate and time. They are the Trinity goddesses mentioned in the Quran. So it's understood that these three goddesses represent different facets of one deity, which is Alat, right? She is respected as the counterpart of Allah and the judge of afterlife. And interestingly, Lilith is also referred to as the triple goddess of astrology, who is also Sumerian, which is Anunnaki. However, Lilith in astrology represents the dark side of the moon. But I'm actually starting to see how it all connects, whether it's from Venus to the moon, whatever, Sirius, whatever you want to call it. Because the symbol to the left and then, the Venus symbol in the middle, they look pretty much almost identical to each other. So, yeah, I just thought I'd put that out there. Lilith comes from the word Lilitu, whose ancient story mirrors back to the Anunnaki goddess named Ninma, who is the sister wife of Enki. Enki is the one that created modern day humans as we know today. Look it up. Just do research on it. But yeah, Ninma is equivalent to the Egyptian goddesses Hathor and Isis, the Greek Aphrodite, the Hindu Kali Ma, and Lilith, right? Who are also equivalent to the Egyptian goddess Sekhmet. All of them are Venusian goddesses. And they all possess the Eye of Ra. If you pay attention to their symbolism on the hieroglyphs, they all possess the Eye of Ra. And it has a connection to Venus and Sirius. Ninma is Ninhursag. It's the same person, allegedly. Because you have another wife of Enki's named Damkina, and there's just been times where they just seem to have been separated. But just throughout the pantheons, there's so many name changes, sometimes you don't know who is who or what's what. So, Ninma, aka Ninhursag, is known as the first goddess of Venus and also the mother of Venus. So I hope this, shows you the connection between the moon and Venus, and that it might be a little bit more otherworldly than we think. In the ancient Mayan tradition, and as you guys may know, if you follow me, I got a lot of appreciation for the Mayan traditions. But to the Mayans, Venus also represent death and resurrection. Reason being is because they say that Venus is responsible for union emerging from divorce, mercy emerging from revenge, kindness emerging from callousness, patience from petulance, joy from despair, love from hatred, brotherhood from antagonism. This is what I've actually read. I'll show it to you guys. I put the link in my article, by the way. You guys can actually read all of this on my blog site. The website's up right now as well, www.pyramidmedia369.com. Man, we up and at it. We getting it going. So, yeah, it's just a very interesting story. And, man, a lot of the questions that we have in our heads, man, it's not impossible to find these answers. But, yeah, I like to challenge myself. So, yeah, I would catch myself asking, how is Venus and Sirius associated with each other, right? So, going back in ancient history, I have found that about all mother goddesses are Venusian goddesses. And the eldest mother goddesses are symbolic to both Venus and Sirius. And ironically, Sirius being the brightest star and Venus being the brightest planet is just like, huh. But they represent a lot of the same energy. It's just very interesting. So, yeah, I just feel like there's an obvious connection between the two. And it said that that's actually where Nibiru is originally from. It's from the Sirius star system. From what I've read, Nibiru was shifted out of Sirius's orbit and took on a new orbital motion. So the Anunnaki are beings of more of a higher density, not of this plane or this realm. They're not from here at all. Like, the story would tell you that they're not even from this dimension. They're not even local to this place. So, yeah, they would use Orion's belt as a portal to travel here from Sirius, which was their place of origin. And anybody that knows me knows I'm obsessed with Sirius. My spiritual path has gravitated me to Sirius nonstop. And I've had several spiritual experiences, man. I'm just thankful. I'm thankful, man. But yeah, man. Pyramid Media Podcast, man. We back and we ain't going nowhere. Stay tuned. Peace.